Let's go. Let's get this started. And we are live. What's up, YouTube? We got Josh Dobson, mortgage expert, to analyze the business cycle. Josh, where do you think we're at in the business cycle here? We got a lot of charts, we got a lot of data. We're gonna hash it out here and try to figure out where we are. It seems like we both thought, hey, we're gonna slow down in Q1 January. Now it looks like we're reaccelerating. So you tell me, where do you think we're at in the business cycle, Josh?
I mean, in all fairness, I think we're still headed towards a slowdown. There's a lot of belief that the Fed's cutting rates. I mean, there were some people that thought they were going to cut this last meeting, which obviously they didn't. And they said that they don't have any intention of, in the near future, cutting rates. So the exuberance towards the economy and rate cuts with the markets were a little bit kind of premature. But the other thing that you have to remember is that in an economy where the Fed is cutting rates, that typically means that the economy is doing poorly. So if the Fed is actually cutting rates, that means they believe the economy is doing poorly. So what do you believe? Do you believe that the Fed is cutting rates and the economy is doing well? Or do you believe that in history, when the Fed's cutting rates, we are headed into a recession and that's what's happening? So I still think the cycle is still heading towards a recession. And I think the Fed's willingness to cut rates and talk about cutting rates is a good indicator that they believe the same thing.
Okay. I see. So where you think, because I think out from what I look at the data, okay, given let's say the data is true or accurate, it looks like we're in the early cycle. I mean, looking at let's go ahead and look at zoom out a little bit. We got that employment report today, right? Not right, non-farm payrolls. So that's pretty much your momentum, payroll momentum. Is it picking up? Is it falling? Man, big beat, tremendous beat today. High level and unemployment came in at 3.7. So the level of employment seems fully packed. The momentum of payrolls being added seems like it's starting to pick up. And is it that your opinion is this data is very skewed and needs to be revised eventually?
Well, ask yourself this: how often do they change the definition of unemployment? What is the definition of unemployment this time? So unfortunately, just like inflation, the inflation numbers, they change the definition of what is going in the basket that is causing inflation because it fits their narrative. So if you really want to look at the numbers, just look at the headlines. I mean, UPS laid off 12,000 employees. There are layoffs occurring everywhere, and that can be a contagion. Whether you want to believe it or not, usually when large industries start laying off people, you see more of those same companies in the same industry starting to lay off people because it gives them the nod that it's okay to do it because the perception is that you're not failing if you're doing what everybody else is doing. So I would disagree with, again, the read on the unemployment simply because of the definition. You got to remember a lot of the workforce is leaving the actual workforce now because of the boomers aging out. So you're seeing a lot less people or a lot less labor force. You just have to understand that by definition, the unemployment rate isn't what it used to be. So I would disagree with the fact that it ticked down, especially if you're seeing job losses come, people being laid off. As far as the jobs report and the increase in the number of jobs, I think that's fantastic. But you have to look at it this way. So we have an immigration issue. We have a flood of immigrants coming into the United States, taking those low-level jobs, which could be helping these numbers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the average Joe here in the United States is feeling the same way. Because you talk to a lot of people on the street and they will tell you if they're not working, it's hard to find a job.
Right. Christian, the defender, I think that answers your question or your comment there. He said it's not legal. I don't even know what I could say on TikTok at this point. It's not legal. You know who? That's the beat for unemployment or for employment. You know who needs them to boost the economy so he wins is what they said. And that makes sense to me. I'm pretty sure people are hiring at a high pace. Now, again, how do they actually measure this, right? Who knows? Who knows how it's actually being measured? It is accelerating. Now the stock market loves it, but the average American is like, what? What? They have to change jobs. They have to move. They can barely afford things. So the market loves it. We're at all-time highs right now. S&P, NASDAQ, all-time highs. Who's swallowing all this growth? Facebook. I mean, well, Meta, right? Why? Well, my guess is Meta's going higher, definitely, because we're about to get hundreds of millions of spend on advertising.
Ad
right?
spend.
Ad spend. A lot of ad spend. Amazon, Google. Tesla's doing no good. Who knows? But yeah, okay. So that makes sense there. Next chart, average hourly wages. Now these are a boost. And I thought about this. I'm not sure. Maybe you should, if you are struggling, right? Don't take it personal, but maybe you should move to construction. Construction's wages are climbing, mining climbing, manufacturing climbing, financial activities. Well, we know what that's all about. Tricksters and transportation. Transportation. But if you're in whole food trade, you're probably struggling, or retail trade, utilities, who knows? I mean, this is just kind of the industry, but that's kind of the wage report. And this is surprising. How do you explain this? It looks like consumer spending, or not. Well, this is actually consumer confidence, right? Consumer confidence, Michigan, and basically the Michigan Consumer Confidence Survey. Who's being surveyed here? Because I've never got surveyed. So this is boosted.
Yeah, no, I mean honestly, sometimes you just wonder who they're talking to, because so many of us spend a lot of time talking to one another, getting to feel how people are doing, and nobody I talk to is confident that the economy is doing well, that their money's going as far as it needs to. Most people are struggling to pay their bills. You can see credit card delinquencies are up, auto car rates are up. So the auto repo market's going to get flooded with cars, credit cards, and people. You're going to see an increase in bankruptcies. There's nothing that points to the fact that the average consumer is confident that they're going to do well in this economy as long as prices stay where they're at.
This has got to be the older population. This has got to be boomers, right? That are answering these surveys. Because I don't even know anybody who's ever done a survey. That's, I'm 33. So this has got to be because a lot of this data was put into the industry probably back in the 70s, I'm guessing 80s, where the biggest spenders were the boomers, right? We had the baby boomer explosion, 50, 60, 40, 50, 60, or really 50, 60s. And they probably like, okay, well, let's get this confidence survey because they're spending like crazy. There's a lot of them. But nowadays, does this really reflect how people are really feeling? Probably not. But the stock market loves it. Why? Because probably the boomers are 87% of the wealth. So
that's their money they're trading on there.
It's fake surveys. They tell you what they want you to believe, whatever fits their agenda. Well, you better get long stocks then, because you better get.
Yeah, that's not always 100% true, because as soon as they decide to turn this around, they will, and it will hurt.
What do you mean exactly? Can you?
If they ever decide to get real with us about some of this data, and stop changing the definitions. The real data is going to really hurt. It's going to show that things are a little bit worse off than what everybody else has been led to believe.
Well, let's go to that negative data, because we did have a couple things. First off, let's just jump to this really quick. Bookmarks. I'm not trying to bookmark that. Yo, what is this? Come on, Twitter. So before we get there, come on. I think Twitter is freezing on me. Come on, bro. No way. Okay, so New York Community Bank. Did you see this story yet? Down 50%. And the question
wasn't even the assets they bought either. It is their own assets.
It's usually their own assets.
So from what I understand, it is their multifamily apartments that are hurting, because a lot of their multifamily unit apartments are there's rent control being talked about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, rent controls. I see. So a lot of they must be in California then. No, I'm just kidding. New York, California, the big cities probably having this is probably a little political rent control, which it's like, what else do you do, right? People can't afford it anyway. So you're having this commercial real estate collapse. Now the question is, do you think it's widespread or isolated here? Idiosyncratic or widespread?
Widespread. We talked about it a minute ago that there's a problem in the commercial real estate industry. As long as the Fed keeps rates as high as they are, it is going to crush regional banks, and it will demoralize the larger banks. But we all know who's going to get bailed out and who isn't.
Right. Yep, that's true. And then here's the second part, and those are the biggest weaknesses I'm seeing right now. Is it isolated? Well, you hear on CNBC, and I'm hoping it's isolated, right? Actually, no. You know what? Maybe not, because maybe the Fed will print and crypto goes higher, so maybe not. But is it widespread? Is it isolated? And then you have credit card delinquency rates pretty much at the highest levels in 40 years.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if the data goes any further back, but this might be the largest that we've seen.
You probably see somewhere around the same in the 80s.
Okay, in the
when
80s.
Interest rates were 18% on a mortgage, so they were like 30% on a credit card.
Okay. All right. So yeah, delinquencies going up. And I'm guessing that's it's not a big piece of the pie, because those are probably younger people who don't have a lot of money anyway. So I'm not sure if that's a big domino effect. What do you think?
It can be a huge domino effect. I mean, you got to remember that most of those banks that are carrying those credit cards are going to have to, write those off. They're going to have losses on that. So if they've already have depreciated assets as far as their bonds that they purchased to offset their loans, and now you have credit card debt that isn't getting paid, they start writing those losses. They're going to need more in reserves. That means they're going to need more people making deposits. So they're going to have to do something to bring in more money, or they're not going to meet the financial stress test. And so you see more banks failing to do that. So then they call on the Federal Reserve for the window to borrow some money to help keep afloat. It is the canary in the coal mine, because when the consumer can't pay their credit cards and they can't pay their car loans, they're obviously struggling. And as that continues, it will start to affect mortgages. It will start to affect real estate, and people stop paying rent. People stop paying rent. Those landlords can't pay their mortgages. They can't pay their mortgages. The banks are taking more losses. So there is a huge domino effect there. Does the Fed and does this administration allow it to get that far? Obviously, they're not going to. They're going to do whatever they can to prop up and keep us from that. But again, when credit card delinquencies start and car loans delinquencies start, that's the beginning of the domino effect. That's just how it's always done. It's always how it's been. That's why you pay higher interest on your credit card debts. That's why you pay higher interest on your car loans than you do for a mortgage, because typically those are the first thing that people don't pay.
Okay. And once we do, do we got an echo? Hold on. Okay. Is it still there? No. Once we get to that point, now this is kind of where the Fed's at, and this is where we're jumping around a little bit. But if we're at peak rates, okay, we got to be at peak rates. The question is, which path are we taking? Are we going to hold here? And if those delinquencies come in commercial real estate, because I think the New York City Bank is, if it is commercial real estate, then yes, that is, one canary in the coal mine. These delinquencies on auto loans, here we go, because I think those are pretty high too. I just didn't see the chart. Credit cards pretty high. How big of a piece is that? And that's probably why the Fed is nervous. Yesterday was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago, right? That's probably the most nervous I've ever seen Powell. He looked very
nervous. He was on edge.
Nervous. He was on edge. He was very annoyed. So I think he knows he's gonna have to cut rates, and whether they're worried about inflation coming back or not, I think he is worried. Okay, if this crashes, we're gonna have to cut rates. So we might get that. And then number two, here's what I'm really saying. We've had the shadow liquidity, right? Basically the support coming from the reverse, basically from the Fed. And that runs out. That's going to run out. It's only at 500 billion. They're going to keep printing another probably trillion from what I've seen from the US Treasury market. So this runs out. All the timing kind of points to March, April. So that runs out. So my guess is, and this is again why, well, let's get to it. This is the credit card machine. I'm trying to make these things simple instead of the Fed balance sheet. This is,
I love it. That's awesome.
This is the central bank's credit card. Look, like you get the credit card interest rates right here. What rates are you paying on your credit card? This is your credit line. This is the basically the world or the US's credit line, it's been falling for a while. Like, okay, instead of 5,000, you can only borrow 3,000. But I'm pretty sure this is going to turn and we're going to have to go back up. We're going to have to lend, right? The central bank is going to extend their credit line to the US. They have to, because March, I mean, this thing runs out. You have a lot of delinquencies, credit card, whatever it is. And I'm betting this credit card machine comes up. Who loves liquidity? Who loves credit to go up? Crypto. So enough said there. Enough said there. And major central banks, money supply. You see the money supply has to come up. The only way this usually comes up, or typically what's correlated with money supply coming up, is we are headed into recession. So it's weird because it's like we're in this early cycle, hot jobs, hot employment, growth is coming back. But then why is
the
liquidity?
data?
Right.
The data is leading everybody to believe it. That's why you're seeing the boom. But I really think there's a consolidation in the market itself coming. We've been on a rise for way too long. I want to say that the increase in the NASDAQ, the sustainability is just not there. It's been there so long that there's going to be some sort of consolidation. That's just how those markets work. And when that consolidation happens, is it just a slight pullback and everything's fine? It would be, or it will be, as long as the economy is doing fine. But if the economy starts to hit the tank and we're in a recession and the Fed's having to print money, cut rates, the markets are gonna take a huge hit.
Right. Yeah, the markets and we'll see. I mean, this is where I would say expertise comes in, is something's gonna boom and something's gonna bust. I don't think everything collapses. There's gonna be a boom and a bust somewhere. And call 1-800. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Definitely, they're trying to get people to buy U.S. Treasuries like insanely all over. Their marketing and buy the U.S. Treasuries. And here we got Tree Fitty. His name is Tree Fitty. That reminds me of this reminds me of South Park. There's a dude who used to say that, Tree Fitty, on South Park. This is a dude's name. Anyways, he says, yeah, he's trying to exit the matrix. He's been following the money trail for 6 years now. He's 27. Yeah, shout out to you. Keep doing your research. A lot of people don't. They're just listen to whatever they're told. Defender says, Christian the Defender, I see Black Swan event coming 2024. It's important election year that decide. I think the Black Swan event comes in 25. I'm a little further out. I think they push it because there's going to be a lot of promises. Maybe the economy is 2024. But I think the markets start to get hit 2025. That's my view. I think it gets pushed further out from liquidity. Tree Fitty says something catastrophic will definitely happen because it's an election year. Typically, stocks actually do way better, and then they crash. But you never know. You never know nowadays. There's so many factors hitting at the same time.
Well, there's a lot going on. I mean, there could be a false flag with the increase in immigration, illegal immigration. Because God knows what's coming across the border.
You never know, man. Super Bowl. He thinks it's going to be after Super Bowl. I honestly, let's see, hear me. I think, make sure you guys give complete sentences because it's kind of hard to read, ghetto talk. No, I'm just kidding. I speak ghetto, but I don't read ghetto. Not any regular elections year that's bigger than what? Yeah, this is a big election year for sure. Trying to make him look good, blah, 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 re-election. I'm reading your guys' stuff. I just want to make sure it's relevant. I think a lot of people are banking on crypto bull run. Perfect time to crash it. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Hear me out, everyone. When you know who gets charged, things will flip upside down. Okay. South Park. South Park. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to you. Hey, make sure. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. Now, here's what I'm looking at for the market. I want to get your thoughts on it. ISM manufacturing. Right. So new orders. So this is basically where I'm at with the cycle. I think we're going to continuously have a very strong recovery here into 24. I don't really see anything bad till 2025 outside of a black swan. Okay. Outside of a black swan. But right now you're seeing that new orders are being basically exploding versus the inventory. So if inventories are falling, and this is kind of the chart for it, you're getting inventories fall. So demand is coming into the market. New orders are picking up in the manufacturing sector. It looks like services are slowing a little bit. So this is non-inflationary growth, margin expansion, which is why I think you're seeing the market at all-time highs because their margins are expanding. So, hey, the real economy is struggling for most people, but these big tech, where the money's follow the money, Facebook, Amazon,
Google, bro, they're just making money hand over fist, and that's
they're making
because they can charge the prices, right? And that's right. that inflation that we saw it's still here. I mean, inflation's slowing down. It's not accelerating like it was, but it is not coming down. Regardless of what anybody says, inflation is not coming down. Prices are not coming down. They're just going up less quickly. So all those profit margins that those big companies were taking when they could blame COVID and they could blame the disruption in the supply chain, all those increases that they took then, that maybe they weren't making as much then because of the actual costs and the problems that they were having, they're getting all of that now as a profit because of the increased productivity, and they're doing layoffs. So their profit margins are sky high, and they're not doing anything to their prices for us as the consumer. So we're still experiencing the hard part of having to afford to pay for this stuff that they're selling to us at higher profit margins now than they were prior to COVID and during COVID. And that's why you're seeing a lot of that happen, because they're able to make more money.
Right. They're able to be profitable. And that's why I always harp on, when there's a big crash, that's when it's time to get that gunpowder ready, because they're going to make money regardless. They're always going to make big money. Your wages are never going to keep up. Or X's. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Bukowski, what up, Bukowski? 350, yes, people won't accept it for what we have. Ease crypto is the foot in the door to the, oh my goodness. Okay, we got some radicalism here. Be careful there. I would love to read it, but look, I get shadow banned on TikTok for reading some of those comments, so I'm gonna be careful, because I've got shadow banned literally for saying Tesla, for showing how much I like Tesla. I've got shadow banned, so I gotta be careful. Big earnings out, yes, big earnings came yesterday, last night. Markets at all time. Apple kind of missed a little bit, but hey, they're still $100 billion in cash. Google crushed it. Meta crushed it. They're doing a dividend. Amazon crushed it. They all pretty much crushed it. I think we roll over on Nvidia earnings, because those semiconductors chips are moving. They are moving before earnings even hit. So I think they're going to roll over at the earnings there. GDP, just, the reason I have this up, because GDP is now estimated to be at 4.2% for Q1. This is like a real-time indicator. So usually you don't get the GDP until the end, till March, but this is a real-time indicator. This is partly why I think the market is bidding higher, because it's like, okay, the Fed is seeing consumption continuously climb. Maybe it is only the baby boomers consuming so much, but it is happening, and we're at 4.2%. And we were earlier at 2.1. So that is climbing at the moment. Markets are not the economy. Keep that in mind. Any thoughts on this GDP number?
Yeah. I mean, look at the numbers as far as where the actual GDP is coming from. Strip out political or government spending, and we shrank GDP wise. So really, is our economy actually growing, or is it just government spending? So you got to look at the numbers. You got to look at where the data comes from. GDP growth would be negative if it was not for government spending.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of and we, I have been talking about this, if you guys are used to my channel, since
Reinvestment Act, all that stuff, right?
From a long time ago. I was like, look, the market's going to boost because the economy might suck, but they're spending trillions. I mean, the full package is somewhere around 3 trillion that they've spent for the last 2 years, and it's going to keep going until 2027, I believe. We'll see how it changes with the new election, but
new elections, new administration.
So they're going to keep spending. Now, are we at the end of the cycle? Are we at the beginning? Are we in the middle? That's, we'll see. We all have our opinions on that, but they're definitely spending like a sailor. And this is a weird position, because it's like the Fed is about to cut, but GDP's up. Okay, this is
exactly. So think about this. So Powell's looking at the same information, right? If Powell's looking at the same information and feeling the same way we did, GDP's growing. There should be no reason for rate cuts. We've got to keep inflation down. GDP's doing just fine. You're supposed to, and jobs aren't. There's not a huge unemployment spike. Jobs are doing fine. He's meeting all of his goals by keeping rates up. So why is he touting or talking about doing rate cuts? Because he sees the real data that is hidden beneath all of the smoke and mirrors that we're getting with these pushes. He sees that the government spending is the real reason we have GDP growth. He knows that that's not sustainable. He knows that that actually turns into more inflation. So he's got to look at it from a standpoint that we can't sustain this. We've got to get the people spending again. We've got to get the consumer spending again. How do we do that? We cut rates. We give them the ability to borrow more money at a lower cost. And that's really what I think they're thinking, and that's what they're doing. So again, you got to be careful what the headlines say, and you really got to look at the data for what it is. Whether you believe the data to be true, if you believe that the calculation that they used is correct, changing the definition of something or using a different good versus another good to figure out what inflation is, you can tell how the economy is doing by what Jerome Powell is saying and doing, because they're the ones that are actually going to be with a microscope looking at some of this stuff on a deeper dive. And I think that's what you're hearing from them, is that they believe that this is not what everybody is thinking it is. We're in this great economy. They really think that the economy is still planning on being hurt, and they're going to have to do something about it. So that's why they're talking about rate cuts.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like basically Powell is saying, okay, the numbers look good, but we know it's a lot of fiscal, and we know the baby boomers are still spending on assets. It's a lot of asset dividends, but most people are, most of the economy is being driven by a small minority. Stock, the wealth effect is, most people don't own a lot of stocks. If they do, it's maybe a couple thousand, right? They don't have most of their wealth in stocks or real estate. Maybe so real estate, but not really, not my generation. So I think Powell is like, okay, these delinquencies are going to hit. And what's more dangerous, the recession or inflation coming back? That's why he's in a rock and a hard place, right? Because he's like, look, if you guys keep spending, which we are now hearing from a former Fed official said the other day, they call him the Fed guy on Twitter. He said that he's hearing of tax cuts coming into play. You want to harp on the small tax cuts that we just got?
Yeah. So obviously the House passed the child tax credit bill. What they're not talking about is the fact that that bill only passed with the Democratic support because they got a huge tax cut for corporations in the bill itself. So there was a big push from lobbyists in large corporations pushing for that bill, not necessarily for the child tax credit because they could care less. They wanted it because there was some huge corporate tax breaks in the bill for them. Obviously, in states like California and New York and some of those other states where they're trying to encourage corporations to run their businesses out of, even though they have a high tax bracket, state tax. The federal government is trying to give them some tax breaks in those states to help keep them there so that they can keep those economies going. But that was the real reason that passed the House, was because of those corporate tax breaks. They could care less about the child tax credit, but that did get passed, which is that's a small amount of stimulus, right? That is people's ability to get a nice little bit tax refund or a bigger tax refund. So that's, like you said, the administration is going to do what they can to apply some sort of stimulus to help the consumer.
And if you guys look, check this out. I don't even know if it's on here, but I want to point this out really quick that you said that. You do have to read the data. You do got to read the data. See if I could do this elegantly before I mess up the whole stream. Am I zoomed in? Okay. So I think it was like was it a week ago? Oh, it's not gonna. Don't tell me it's not gonna load. It was about a week ago. The Fed came out with actually, you know what? Let me just pull up the paper. I think I had it. I think I looked at it. Here it is. I'm going to show you guys right here instead of pulling it up on my Twitter. And then let me pull it up here. I want you to see this because this was the telltale for me that we're going to get that child tax credit. We're looking at basically this is the Fed beige book, and they looked at all the communities, right? All the central banks, basically all the regions in the U.S., and they're getting a sentiment reading about what people are struggling with. And I don't know if I highlighted it on here. Did I highlight it on here? Well, at the bottom of most of these, it was all childcare. Is we're struggling to pay childcare services, and then the service providers were struggling to pay the employees
to cover the service for the
service.
Yeah, so it was just exacerbating the cost because the childcare services were having to increase their costs, and more people were having to bow out, not use it because they couldn't afford it.
And I would go read this, guys. Go read this so you can see what's really going on in the economy. These are households. Is it this one? I put it on my, anyways, I thought I was going to be able to find it. I didn't highlight it on this, but I put it on here. I put it on my Twitter, And this is just for the people who want to be a nerd and go look. Like, if you really are searching for what's going on, you have to look through everything that comes out. And I'm pretty sure it was down here. I wish I could just like hit a button. And what I said was, I think we're gonna get some type
The
of
child tax
childcare tax cut or stimulus for childcare, because they're highlighting in the beige book all over every region that families are struggling with paying those bills, and then the workers are struggling. I know a couple of people who are working, they're saying, look, they're putting 13 kids in the classroom, I mean, we're talking 9-month-olds, 1-year-olds in the classroom with 2 teachers, and that's not enough people to be working with that many kids. Especially, they need a lot of attention, so they're like maximizing these rooms, and they're struggling. They're not getting paid enough, and there's going to be accidents with those kids, right? And then the places, they're underground, they're not making money, so they're struggling. So it's like, how are we going to get this up? Well, is that a immigration thing? Do you want that to come in and start, you know what I'm saying? Like, it gets a little tricky there. Do you want robots? You know, what are you going to do? So they need to increase the wages, but then now you have a wage inflation spiral. So it's going to be tricky.
There's a service you want to get into, right? Providing childcare.
Exactly. There's probably going to be
that's a great. I mean, if you're looking for a job, try working out, becoming a childcare provider, because I mean, there's a huge need for it, and obviously you can charge decent money. But I'm sure it's probably not that easy, especially like in states like California. Becoming a child care provider is probably like pulling teeth.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I used to work with emotional unstable kids, and we had a lot of kids coming from those backgrounds, because that's where it's tough. They're here in Arizona. The government will pay you to rent a house and to have these kids come through, because there's just not enough placement for them. They have no placement, so it's rough. But we needed the community. The government ain't going to do it for you. So you do need that. So you'll get paid there. Hopefully they pay you more, though. They got to give some type of incentive structure for people to do these jobs. Anyways, so let's go to the housing market a little bit, because this is your expertise, Josh. And I guess we'll go over these really quick. We see that construction right now, completed construction is wherever it is. Let me back up. Sorry. There we go. So if we go back to 1970, you're seeing that under construction builds are exploding. These are multifamily, correct?
5 units or more.
5 units or more. Building permits recovering. This is my early cycle recovery, business cycle data. Housing starting to pick up. Did you say interest rate? Oh yeah, interest rates falling.
Yeah, I told you. I mean, as soon as interest rates come down, you're going to see construction boom again. You're going to see people. You're going to see inventory climb. You're going to see demand rise. It's going back to more of the same. It's kind of crazy.
Okay, so give us a little. Did anything change since we last spoke? Is it just that rates are down and more?
Literally, that is it. Rates have come down substantially over the last time we spoke and continue to go down. And with that, you have seen, I mean, shoot, we saw an uptick in purchase contracts, probably about 200% increase in purchase contracts over the last 30 days. So since January 1st, we've put more into contract than we did probably the last 3 months of 2023. And it's simply because of interest rates. You talk to every consumer. I heard interest rates have come down. Oh my God, I can get a 5% interest rate on my 30-year fix to buy a house. I'm in, let's do it. We found a house. The other part about it is that there are more people listing homes. So there's more chances for people to actually get into contract. So it's easier for people to get into contract right now because they're finding the homes that they want and there's not a lot of competition. But that's starting to change. We are starting to see demand increase so much that it's starting to become a slight bidding war when you're finding the house that you want. So while we've been pre-approving quite a few people, we've started to see a slowdown in the actual purchase contracts simply because they're writing offers and their offers are being beat by somebody else. And so you're seeing the competition start to come back. So the housing market is starting to pick back up. And like I said, it was as soon as interest rates started to come back down, it would increase. If they get down to 5.5%, like I said previously, it's going to be crazy. You're going to see more homes on the market and more buyers out there buying. It will be a frenzy.
And you had a couple of people asking on TikTok, who the guy was that I'm speaking to. This is Mortgage Dad of Three. What is your name on TikTok? It's
That's Mortgage Data 3, bro.
Mortgage Dad of Three. I just showed you
Yeah.
guys the screen. That's why I was showing you the screen so you can see if you want
That's
to
my
go
social media handle.
go follow him. He's in my I don't follow a whole lot of people, so you can go find him on there. But yeah, that's who we're talking to. He has a lot of insight and knowledge on things I do not. So we have these every 3 weeks, month, whatever, just to see what we're looking at, to see how things are going. But yeah, that's him right there. I don't have the screen pointed at YouTube because it lags. But anyways, that's who that is. Mortgage Data 3, Josh Dobson. If you want to go follow him, go check him out. He has a lot of good information if you need to get a mortgage. And see, I gotta watch what I say. Last time I got banned when we had this, I said something about it, and it said you're trying to scam, blah blah blah. I don't know if there's people.
Ooh, really? Wow.
Yeah, something. It was. I'm always getting hit. I don't know. Maybe I don't say it correctly. I don't know. Bukowski, yeah, we'll do the market stuff later. We're just doing a macro update. We're at all-time highs pretty much. Rates are down, the dollar's going down. It looks like the market's going to keep ripping at this point. So back to some of this data. Did I keep messing this up? There we go. All right. So we're just looking at all the charts. This is the data that the market's running off. It's basically saying, hey, look, things are accelerating for the stock market. Maybe not necessarily the economy in some people's views. I think immigration is definitely landing a hand. You can see labor productivity has picked up given the numbers. So people are creating more things, whether it's products or services, per unit worked. That's very positive. A lot of it could be also maybe some people are getting fired so that one person can use AI to produce as much as those people would. And I think that's another thing. You could see layoffs, but the market go up because growth is coming from productivity more than anything. And we saw production, industrial production. This is how much output is being created for the manufacturing industrial economy finally go positive for the first time in a while. Hopefully I don't run out of breath. But okay, yeah, we went through that. Housing market. Oh, this thing right here, shipping container rates. Okay, that was the other risk too, is we saw this spike. So what do you think is going on now? I think, okay, so we have delinquencies, auto delinquencies. That's a risk. You have credit card delinquencies pretty much at all time. I mean, pretty high. You have the commercial real estates, I guess what default starting to hit a couple of these banks, probably in New York, California. I'm guessing a couple places in California, where there's extremely high real estate prices. They can't pay the interest rate. And then here you have these shipping containers. I just call it trade route insurance is spiking because of the Red Sea. What are your insights on the Red Sea so far? Is it getting worse? Is it the same, neutral, or what do you think?
Well, it depends on kind of who you listen to, but obviously the Houthis haven't backed down. I believe there was a statement that came out from them that said that they were sorry for killing the American soldiers and that they would try to tone it down, maybe even stop doing it. But then the rebels that are actually on the street are still firing missiles, still attacking us. So, there's a disconnect between the leadership within the Houthi and the actual militants within the Houthi. And I think that's the problem, is that they don't have control of the people that are firing the missiles. So it's going to continue. You're still going to see those attacks. The U.S. has obviously talked about how they're going to have to answer with something. I think the other issue that you have is that this is viewed as a proxy war with Iran, and Iran is involved in these attacks at some level. So Biden's administration has talked about some sort of attacks on Iran or Iran targets outside of Iran. And you've got now Congress posturing, saying, look, you cannot start a war, you cannot attack Iran without our approval. So now we get to the semantics. As we all are aware, presidents have gone to war without Congress's approval before. They just call it something else, and they put it under the guise of something else. So if this escalates, it won't get Congress approval because Congress won't approve a war. But if this escalates, it will be the Biden administration, using some semantic to create some sort of conflict and attacks on certain targets throughout the world, obviously in answer to what they believe is a proxy war from Iran. And as that happens, right, and I think you can see it at the gas pumps, right? So oil prices are down, gas prices should be down, but gas prices really haven't been coming down. Why? Because traders have been keeping the price up. Traders have been keeping the price up because they believe that this conflict in the Red Sea is going to affect the bottom line for them. So, and production. So they're inflating the price of gas on the open trade to keep their profits coming in just in case something does happen. So you can see that as well with gas prices versus oil prices.
Yeah, oil came down for the macro, I'd say, but it's not. I keep thinking it's going to drop out to like 60.
It's not going to drop out it's not going to drop out to 60 unless our friends Saudi Arabia decide to flood the market. I don't think.
Right.
Because at $60 a barrel, there's too much of the U.S. production that just can't afford to keep pumping out the gas or the oil that they're pumping out. So they've got to keep that price at a certain level to keep operating, and I think that's what they're using to control that market right
now. Mother Goose says, "How will war affect everything?" And I'll give my quick tad bit. If it does accelerate to I mean, there's always wars going on, but if it comes economically, where if we see the price of oil spike, I think above 100, we'd have to make a new high. I think it's lights out for all the markets. I think it's lights out. You're going to get a reacceleration of inflation. It's always oil because it is such a big commodity. It's not just energy prices either. It filters into plastics and all these other things.
Everything we use every day.
Everything we use every day. So if oil spikes, then we're in trouble. There's no scenario because the dollar is going to go up. That's going to crush asset prices. It might strengthen the economy in a certain way, but that shock will cause the Fed to have to actually probably hike again.
Yep.
And then prices go up, and then you're in a deep recession.
Do you want to look at it from a historical standpoint to get an idea of what might happen? Look at the 80s, stagflation, the oil embargoes, the oil crisis that we ran into back in the 80s, and what that did to the economy, what that did to interest rates, what that did to the average Joe. That's a huge indicator or a good look back at what would happen if something like that happened, because the 80s were a pretty good telltale sign of that happening.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much similar. So that's again why I'm like, I don't see anything. We don't have renewable energies, kind of widespread yet. So I don't see any way out of that. You're just gonna have to unfortunately suck it up, but we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, this is the biggest risk I see happening at the moment. And then kind of how Josh said earlier, we're seeing rates, little incremental moves down is helping the housing market. So then you expect this to keep falling, right? Because those payrolls are kind of, I mean, we thought January would be a big drop off. It was a big pickup.
Yep.
And so I guess we'll move it to February, right? We'll move it to February because again, I know the people I know. I don't know who's spending, but the people I know, they're spending less. They're not going out. They're not doing things. They're trying to be more conservative, and the market's going up. But unless they own stocks, which most people do not, it's just not happening. So I think you get more fiscal spending. Somebody asked on there, well, what happened with the war? What happens is the government keeps trying to pass more bills for spending, and that I think reaccelerates inflation if you get a direct check because you are the victim of XYZ. So here's your check, and what are you going to do with that check? You're going to go buy stocks? Likely not. You're probably going to go spend it on partying because you're going to say it's the end of the world.
Yeah, services, goods and services.
Goods and services. So
that's what they want you to spend it on too.
Right. That's what keeps the economy going, spending, productivity, blah, blah, blah. So I think we're in early cycle still for the stock market in that time frame. Economically, I guess I don't know. From the evidence I see, we're in early cycle, housing market picking up, economic activity, manufacturing picking up. Maybe services are weakening still. I think they we haven't got the PMI yet. I think it's next week for the services, but we haven't seen that. And yeah, that's what we're looking. Do you guys have any other questions? What was this fight? Russia, Iraq, Iran, Syria, who are all joining BRICS. Yeah. Typically, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. Typically, the game plan is get your opponent to spend tremendous amounts of defense to get hyperinflation in your country to crash the economy so that you can no longer support the war, and therefore you have to give up territory, you have to retreat and pull your military out. That's kind of the game plan.
Empire fall.
The
Yeah, the
empire
Empire
fall.
fall. Yep.
How long does that actually play out? Who knows? What is your worst case scenario, Josh, and your best case scenario over the next 9
Worst case
months?
scenario, we end up in some kind of war. But I don't, unfortunately, or I guess I should say fortunately for the United States, there's no real country that has the ability, even combined, to really force us into hyperinflation. We've seen the propaganda come out of China that they have missile silo or missiles filled with water and not actual rocket fuel. We have places, the doors that are supposed to open up to fire the missiles don't open. There's a huge amount of corruption within the Chinese military, where they were receiving money to do all this stuff to build up the military, and they didn't actually spend it on it. They just pocketed it, lived the lavish lifestyle, which is what happens in a lot of those kinds of countries with that kind of leadership. So there's not really a superpower that can really challenge the United States. So at the end of the day, if the United States is able to wield its control through its military, which is what basically our dollar is tied to, there's not really anything that's going to be super bad for the US. The empire won't fall because there won't be anything to replace it. And there's nobody to really stand up to us and prolong a war where the United States doesn't become victorious. So until we really see a country step up and decide that's the long game for them, I don't really see an end game where the United States and the empire falls. But I do see hyperinflation, a struggle. But again, that's the boom and bust cycle of central banking. So I think it's part of the cycle. But I don't really see the end game being that bad at this point, just because I don't see a clear, victor or answer to the U.S. as the empire that is controlling the world at this point in time.
Okay, fair enough. Max 007, yeah, the oil black swan could definitely, or oil could cause a black swan because usually it's not linear. Something shocks, everybody reacts negative to conserve themselves. So yeah, that would cause, I think it's over 100. If we get over 100, I mean, I'm praying hopefully we don't see that. But yes, if that happens, but it sounds like most people around the world can't fund anything right now. The US has the biggest bank. So if anything, who suffers is the people holding dollars. US dollars, they suffer the most. You have to have a better wage. If you have a government job, you might be okay as long as you're saving, but you got to learn how to invest, right? Whatever it is, because if you don't learn how to invest, the central banks are sucking the assets.
You'll just be working the rest of your life.
You're going to be working the rest of your life. So it's kind of modern day, you know what? I don't want to say that on here. It's modern day. Even though I'm, I can't even say what I am because I'll probably get banned on here too. Yeah. So if they change the petrodollar, we just attacked Syria, Iraq, Iran against US too. I don't really know what you're asking, Mother Goose, but yeah, basically, I mean, this isn't really a geopolitical stream. those get kind of crazy. But yeah, if oil spikes, that's your big telltale. If oil spikes, this isn't oil, this is S&P. You can tell it doesn't care. This is all Magnificent 7, by the way. Well, not Tesla, Magnificent 6, Nvidia, Apple. That's why this is going higher. But if oil spikes, that's going to hurt every economy in the world, except, and I made this point the other day, it'll help the tyrants in the countries who are only making money off oil. It helps them out. So they want oil to spike because it gives them more money, not necessarily for their citizens, but for the people running the government to keep spending on whatever they want to do. Who knows? But there's a lot of alliances. China, they're struggling bad. They're not going to attack anybody unless they have their economy booming. I don't think they're going to try anything. It's not like everybody's trying to go to war. Everybody's trying to get their economy back together. So we had that big bust. Now it's coming back. What did you say here, Jervine? Best case is growth and inflation numbers fall in line with Fed expectations, and we cut. Worst case is financial crunch, such as banking sector. Yeah. I mean, again, it depends on what asset class you're betting on. I happen to think only the big tech stocks can really survive anything because they can make money at any time. But most stocks do not. Or the crypto cycle, which is a lot more idiosyncratic or separate from everything else. And that's why we kind of talked about, where is it? Chainlink, right? Chainlink is starting to break out again. We'll see how this is not financial advice, by the way, but this is just one of the, when you guys hear about BlackRock and the people who run the world and blah blah blah, well, there's opportunities within there that you may not see. Bitcoin is not necessarily an infrastructure that they're trying to use because they can't control it, but in order to create this new world where they can track everything, they need a protocol, and this is that protocol, right? Now the good thing is, even though they can track everything, it's a good thing because there's no more fraud. That you remove fraud, you remove a lot of inefficiencies from the financial system. But the thing we hope is that this actually brings zero knowledge proofs. So what it does is it hides your identity, even though it clarifies or verifies that you exist, that you have the right information, but it doesn't give your information away. That's what we're hoping happens with this technology. Who knows which way it goes? Either way, the central banks need this to actually work. JP Morgan came out with the white paper, and they're saying interoperability or cross chain, this is the new web, the verifiable web, is coming no matter what. And the opportunity is tremendous. They're saying $400 billion added onto the economy and 60 trillion over the next 10 years when it comes to these type of technologies, tokenizing all real world assets. And I can't talk about, my position, what I'm interested in. I'm just giving you the information here. I don't want to get, taken off or whatever. But there's opportunities outside of these risks because these are small. Baby boomers do not own this. The central banks need to own it in order to transact. And this is kind of speculation. Of course, this is my speculation, but I've done a lot of research on it, and I think I had it on one of the slides. But yeah, no, I just wanted to throw that in there because I know people are like, "Oh, what's going on with Chainlink?" Well, it's trying to make another move, and it's leading the crypto market right now. It's beating Solana, it's beating Bitcoin, it's beating Ethereum. It outpaced all of them on this big upside move. It led the market, consolidated sideways. Now it's leading again. Does it continue this weekend? I don't know. I think we're at 20 by Sunday, Saturday. I think we're at 20, but this is better. The XRP is going nowhere. Nobody's adopting XRP. They need Ethereum. They're already using Bitcoin for, as an asset like gold because they know the central banks are going to keep printing money, and that's the only asset that doesn't get inflated or lose value over time is going to be Bitcoin. But mass adoption is in these protocols for the mainstream. I don't know. I'm going off on a rant here, but anyways, that's kind of what that was. What else did we have here? Thoughts? The hamster wheel, oil struggling. Last spike has been war premium, in my opinion. Yeah. Hey, sorry, I'm trying to find out the economy would do if oil prices change. Thank you. What is this crypto? Oh, this is Chainlink. I'll go over that. Um, but before I finish, Josh, I didn't want to waste any more of your time. I know you're busy, man. You got things to do. Did you have any more comments or anything you wanted to leave the viewers with?
Oh man, I think we covered a lot of it, and it's always fun talking with you about this stuff, and obviously getting some feedback from everybody else.
Hey, 100%. I'm hoping we can talk about those other topics in the future. So stay tuned. I'll eventually, if we start that podcast, I'll hit you up because
That'd be fun, man.
we all need to get that. Thank you again, Josh. We'll see. We'll
Hey, thanks,
find out.
brother.
Have a
Talk to you
good
soon.
weekend.
You too, man.
All right. So the chain link, let me take a small little break and then we'll go over this because this is the leading crypto at the moment. This is the leading crypto at the moment. Okay. Let me go run to the restroom real quick. It's been 53 minutes, and then we'll go over this. We'll go over a little bit of technicals, and then we'll finish off here. But hold on one second. I'll be right back. All right. So what is Chainlink? There's a couple of people who asked there. Jervine, yeah, growth and inflation numbers come in line. This is a tricky scenario here. I'm not 100% sure how it plays out. I'm a little more optimistic than most. And the Bitcoin halving, that's in what, May, April? I think it's in May this year. The Bitcoin halving, is that the real event? No, I think it's early cycle indicators and global liquidity. This is what I'm most I don't want to say interested in, but optimistic about. And why is that? Well, Chainlink it's not even a blockchain like most of these. If Bitcoin didn't exist, if Ethereum didn't exist, this would still exist because it's an infrastructure for blockchain in general, right? And what it does is basically the whole world is not the whole world, but the financial system is trying to make this jump. They jump from Web 1, which was just information that you could read, to Web 2, where you can now write and talk to people. And now we're heading into Web 3. Web 3 is a web. And right now I'd always say, hey, do you guys use TCP/IP? You're going to be like, what is that? What is TCP/IP? You use it every day. It is the underlying protocol for the internet or for the web to actually work. So now we're transitioning to CCIP. And this is what really I think blockchains are going to bring the most value to. And what BlackRock wants to do and the financial system is tokenize or label every asset, real estate, stocks, commodities, right? Gold, oil, whatever it is. They want to label it or attach a value to it through as a token so they can track it wherever it goes. They can track it, they can see who owns it, and it's quicker. And also you eliminate a lot of the middlemen, so it makes them more money. It gives them efficiencies, they make more money, and it's basically turning assets into tokens as an infrastructure, right? So again, this TCP/IP started in the 1970s, and now we're at CCIP in 2023. Does it take off right away? This year, it's supposed to go online. And how do we know? Because the partnerships, they have the most partnerships out of any other crypto by far. Swift, the global messaging system, right? They transact $2 to $4 quadrillion a year. DTCC, 2 to 4 quadrillion, and these are both U.S. based. And then ANZ. Well, Swift is really like a global payments network, right? It's kind of like NATO. It's all like the countries who are Western. It's mostly Western countries. And then ANZ is an Australian bank, and then Euroclear. This is like JP Morgan, who started this. They clear US treasuries for Europe and the US, right? So all of them are using the Chainlink CCIP network in order to move their assets on chain to make things cheaper, faster, more reliable, to prove in real time that one bank has the reserves once they transfer them over, instead of transferring something over or paying for something that isn't actually there. So it gives you live audit, right? You don't have that right now. The audits take 30 days, maybe a month, who knows. And these are live audits. Basically, that's kind of like the end product is a live audit. Also, voting without identity. This is going to be huge, where you're not voting without identity. We want to avoid that. It's voting where it's a system, because this is like the internet, right? Everything is layered with the internet. It's not just finance, it's also gaming, it's also social networks. The internet layers everything. That's the same thing with blockchain. It will layer absolutely everything. So what we're hoping for is the zero knowledge proofs. This is something where if you're voting for whatever, you can put in your vote. It'll verify that you're the right person, and all your identity, but it doesn't give your identity over to the other system that is verifying. It just says this person is real. Here's their social security, here's their thumbprint, whatever it is, but it doesn't give up your knowledge, right? And that's why this is an important protocol, because nobody owns it. It's not a system where, like Amazon, Apple, it's not a corporate system where they can go in and find your information and send it out to the web. They can't do that because nobody owns it. It's a blockchain infrastructure where it's programmatically able to hide all that stuff. It takes a while. They've been working on this for like 10 years. So it's almost coming to fruition. This is going to take a little more time, but the instant settlement, faster, cheaper, more efficient part of it is definitely here. The security part of it is definitely here. This is the verifiable web. You're going to see a lot of deep fakes. going into this year, a lot of deep fakes, a lot of AI saying XYZ. Well, here's where you actually eliminate fraud. You increase the security of the web, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. If they adopt this technology, if they do, which we're hoping, then you can verify everything. So you're not getting fed false information. There'll be some type of some type of alert that says this information is not verified, right? So it'll be verifiable. Nobody controls it centrally. There's no central control. It's almost like Wikipedia, where everybody comes to consensus and says, okay, this is true, this is not, right? So it's always verified information. It connects everything. It is the interoperable web. So that's sort of why the reason why it's moving though at the moment, the reason why the price is moving is simply because there's more demand than there is supply, and it's outpacing everything else. And I think it's going to start outpacing Bitcoin also, what it actually is at the moment. So let's go to that crypto. Oil is struggling. Last spike has been war premium, in my opinion. Yeah, Bukowski, 100%. I don't know if you're still there, but yeah, I agree that last spike in oil was just insurance. Let's buy the insurance against the war. That's how I would also take it. All right, where are we at with crypto? Oh no, that's consumer spending. Celsius on a nice run. All right, so I think XRP is still a pretty popular coin, but this is Chainlink versus XRP. You can see it's been moving against XRP or relative to XRP. Let me move this on to YouTube. There we go. Here we go. There we go. So Chainlink versus XRP, it's outpacing XRP. I can expect that to continue. Plus XRP got hacked, or a wallet got hacked. So my brother told me it wasn't actually XRP, it was the owner of XRP. But hey, hopefully if it was the network, it was a network. I don't think XRP ever gets to all-time highs. This is Chainlink versus XRP. It's going higher, right? Chainlink versus Ethereum breaking out. It's starting to move against Ethereum, meaning it's gaining value faster than Ethereum is gaining value. If this continues, right, to the highs, big move there. And then Chainlink versus Bitcoin. This is the big one. If we get above this level, this is a clear pattern. I know some of you guys have a lot of different questions, but you can see the reverse head and shoulders starting to form here. Maybe a little more time. Either way, once you break above this level relative to Bitcoin, you're talking about a big move in Chainlink. And that's what I'm looking at. I think it has the best fundamentals in all of crypto. I don't even think it's even close. Outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, obviously, this has the best out of all the altcoins, best fundamentals. Ethereum versus Bitcoin hasn't really moved yet. So yeah, we'll keep our eye on Chainlink. Where's the graph at? Oh, Solana looks good too. I'm not a Solana fan, but it is starting to move up a little bit. All right, let's get to some of these questions. Oil is struggling. Hey, throw out your comments or questions so I can cover them. Business cycle. I think I'm going to do another one. I'm going to send out a newsletter tomorrow or Sunday about what I really see. Because, I wanted to get Josh's information. I want to get Josh's opinion on what he's seeing more so in the economy. I'm looking at the data that's coming out, and people say I don't believe the data. That's totally fine. But I'm here to make money. I'm not here to, if I'm here to see where's the market headed, right? Where's the market headed? So when I look at the information, the information tells me the market wants to move a lot higher, especially going into this election cycle. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. Okay, let's go here. Anyway, so questions. Is this going to happen this election? If you're talking about crypto, no, not exactly. We're not going to get a new voting system this election. I have no clue how long that might take. 5 years, 6 years, but at least we know the technology's there, right? This is going to take a lot of regulation to actually get this passed. Some people think it was Chris Larson trying to sell some of his bag, but he got caught, so he said it. Oh, I see. He said it was a hack. Oh, I see what you're saying. So he's trying to sell his bag. If he's trying to sell his bag, what does that tell you? If that's true, you never know nowadays, right? Which is why we need a verifiable web. If he's trying to sell, then he's saying, hey, we realize, this is going nowhere. If war was to happen, what is a good one to invest in? Well, I couldn't tell you that, Mother Goose. Sorry. I can't tell you what to invest in because I'll get banned here. But it depends what drives war. If it's oil, then then oil will probably go higher. Um, and there's not really a war stock, right? There's certain stocks, but the market moves together a lot of the time. I think personally, if war were to break out, you go into cash, right? I'm not saying that's what you should do, but most people go into cash, especially with interest rates this high. You're going to get it paid on cash. There isn't really a great investment, but there probably is some investments. Um, it could be oil and gas companies. It could be like, who is it, Exxon Mobil? I don't know. I'm not really looking into that. I don't see that threat happening anytime soon yet. People say gold. Gold could be one of those risk off. It could be Bitcoin. You never know. It could be Bitcoin. I happen to think I'd rather, if I had to make a bet, I'd bet on Bitcoin more than anything. Gold goes up in times of acute fear. Yeah. So does the dollar. I mean, the dollar spikes too because it's the most risk off, right? If there's a global war, people want US dollars more than anything because it's the most stable currency by far. Do you expect this crypto bull cycle to last out 2024? Good question. There's a couple scenarios here. So you have scenario number one where the Fed does cut rates. Okay, the Fed cuts rates, and this is just like Bitcoin all-time high. The Fed does cut rates early, and they start up the balance sheet because inflation, we're getting this immaculate disinflation, or we're getting what I call early cycle disinflationary boom. And that means the Fed can ease because the economy is struggling in a lot of areas. And you get the election also. The election also, like we're talking about tax cuts already, right? Tax cuts, Fed cuts rates, and Fed cuts rates, tax cuts, Fed balance sheet comes back, or the credit, right? Credit cycle comes back. Well, that might lead to Bitcoin having an early cycle run. My guess would be somewhere around 150. Could be could be a lot more. You never know. There's too many unknowns. Let's just say conservatively 150, right? So 150 to be conservative. That might end. It might go to 150 by the end of 2024, and then when the election actually happens, all those promises pretty much are priced in, and then it comes back down. That's scenario number one. What is the probability of that? Maybe 60%. I don't know. I don't know what the probability is. The other probability, it's a normal cycle. We have the halvening in May, goes sideways June, July, and then explodes into the end of the year, goes to like 100. I think it goes to all-time highs by the end of the year. We're already at, we got to 48 pretty quick. And then 2025, we peak out. So 2025 would be, see, where are we at? 2025. Usually you peak out in November, December. So we go all the way through 2025. And let's say we go to 150 or 200. Who knows? Could go to 300. You can make a big move. It really just depends. There's a lot of institutions who can now pile into Bitcoin, right? Especially in times of need. Like all that cash on the sideline in the money market funds is like 6 trillion, right? What happens when 1% of that comes into the crypto market? It's going to be a big change, right? Or if we get the election and they pass a bill that says some type of regulation where now Bitcoin can go inside of 401ks because BlackRock owns it, and BlackRock's like, hey, this is a safe asset. That's going to be a huge catalyst. Whoa, what happened there? Crypto goes a lot higher, right? So you never know. And then the other scenario is that, what is the other scenario? The other scenario, I think, is that it spikes really quick and then the crypto cycle's over, right? So spikes quick, normal cycle, or which is 2020. It should be like mid to late 2025. It would be a normal cycle. The quick cycle would be this December is the end. And then the other scenario is that it's a normal cycle, 2025, and it goes ballistic, absolutely ballistic, right? That's why I track the macro, because I'm looking at what is the momentum of the economy. What is it looking like right now? It's picking up. The momentum's picking up, right? What is the policy dynamics, right? What are the monetary and fiscal authorities doing? Are they net easing, or are they stimulating? Are they boosting the economy, or are they tightening it? That's what I want to know as we head in this cycle. Also, what are the fundamentals? Is the adoption picking up? Are old wallets selling? Are they not selling? Right? What do the options market look like? So there's a lot of factors, but I'm just thinking, let's just look at the cycle. And at the moment, the cycle's telling me that we're ready to move higher, that we're in crypto spring. I think we're in crypto spring, and you know how it goes after winter. What do you do? Growth comes back. You get growth coming back in spring. I think we're in spring. We've been in spring for a while. Maybe we bottom back here. We've been in spring, and then once the Fed actually cuts, even if there's a recession, cutting of rates increases liquidity. Bitcoin loves liquidity. It's going much higher, and it's just going to have 20% pullbacks because that's what it does. Big upside moves, and then nasty pullbacks, nasty 20-30% pullbacks on the way up. That's the history. Now that could change. You never know. You never know. You just got to track it. Either way, the history is Bitcoin's always up 100% on average a year, right? What's going on with this? Okay. So I would say if you do the Fibonacci retracement, some people like to use the fibs. Let's go to the all-time high. And usually it goes to the top of the fib. I mean, the all-time high is saying 250K Bitcoin. Conservative is saying 100. And then that mid-conservative is about 150. So as far as macro goes, if things play out the way I'm seeing them, I think we're somewhere between 150 and 200. Okay. Without any black swans. We'll find out. We'll see. I'm much more bullish on Chainlink though, based off of how that's going. All right, Bukoski, what'd you say? Last out 2024. Yeah, I think it lasts out 2024, bro. Especially if we go into a new year. Let's say we get the last president back in. He does more, tax cuts, corporate tax cuts, and you keep inflation down. I think inflation is key. If you keep inflation below 3%, Bitcoin's going to go absolutely ballistic because you can re-stimulate, reboost the economy. You can reboost the capital markets and put all that new money on the Fed's balance sheet. The Fed basically buys up the economic debt, right? They buy up the debt. Is it inflationary? Not necessarily. I know people think it's inflationary. Josh would disagree with me, but I don't think it's inflationary. It's only inflationary when the commercial banks lend that money out. But what they could do is, okay, we're going to print money. We're going to pump capital markets to make sure there's no financial collapse, but we're going to put restrictions on the bank lending so they can only lend if you have this credit card rating, credit score, and you have this many assets, XYZ. So you could really get a big monetary boost without inflation. It's happened before. And I am creating a history of those boom and bust cycles in the course. I don't know when the course is going to be ready because I'm putting a lot of details in there, trying to simplify it, make it very, very, very simple. Okay. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But that's what I'm thinking. In short term, do you see Bitcoin doing a lower high and deeper correction, but we have having cycles? What's your thoughts? Good question. Also, let me see. I missed some of these. Gold goes up in times of acute fear. What else we got? Jerome Powell is appearing on 60 Minutes. Oh, yeah. You said that earlier. I'm going to check that out. Do your own research. I remember that. It's on Sunday, right? Yeah, Sunday. We'll check that out. Now they say interest rates will go down, so BTC could take a dive. 30. I mean, people say some wild stuff like they're all correlated. Those things are not completely correlated. If there's more demand for Bitcoin, it's going higher. If the cost of money falls, there's going to be more demand for Bitcoin, right? The only way that doesn't happen is if the ISM or forward-looking growth is turning negative. And at the moment, forward-looking growth is starting to reaccelerate, right? The ISM new orders, which is forward-looking demand, that is reaccelerating. The momentum's picking up. If the momentum turns negative and there's rate cuts, then Bitcoin doesn't do well, historically. So it really depends on where the economy is, forward-looking demand, and it depends on where rates are. And also, is the Fed printing money? Because they can cut rates and then they can reaccelerate the Fed balance sheet. So they can extend credit into the system. Very bullish for Bitcoin. So 3 charts, the Fed's balance sheet or net liquidity. I just look at this, watch. Oh, this thing is really slowing down. Fed net liquidity. So they would cut rates. Here's your rate cuts. And then here's the Fed balance sheet. If this goes up, Bitcoin is going to explode. And this is just the Bank Term Funding Program. Fed net liquidity. Here it is right here. Right. So this is just the white one is basically all sources of Fed liquidity, or in other words, credit coming into the system. So if this credit continues to climb, my expectation is Bitcoin continues to climb. And if it gets to all-time highs, right, it's not a stock, but once it starts to break out, that means there's a lot of capital in capital markets. And when the biggest asset manager in the world, who's tied to the government and the central banks, BlackRock, is going to receive a lot of that liquidity, right, and probably get rid of their money market cash, they're going to want a vehicle. And they're already been buying a lot of Bitcoin. Somebody on here said earlier, they're not buying Bitcoin. There's no, dude, in order to get Bitcoin on their, to sell Bitcoins, they have to buy Bitcoins. They're buying them from Coinbase. So as long as liquidity goes up and rates stay where they're at or fall, and inflation is disinflating or just moving sideways beneath 3%, I'm very bullish on crypto. Now, I think crypto outperforms Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Meta. The only thing that could probably outperform is Tesla. Okay. That's a big mega cap. Tesla's not doing so good right now, but that narrative could change really quick with full self-driving. So it only takes, a couple catalysts to get Tesla going. Other than that, that's my thesis. I don't think that's changed. It has not changed for me. So, you asked about the correction though. Do we get a near-term correction? Let's see, near-term correction. I think this was the correction. What was that? 20%? Oh, it was about 20%. It's about a 20% correction. If we do pull back, I think there's a lot of demand at 35K. Obviously could be wrong, right? There could be something some bad macro, but what I would look at is this. If the dollar continues to roll over, I don't see Bitcoin. Where's the US dollar? There it is. If the dollar continues to roll over, which it made a big move today, I don't see Bitcoin really coming down. Now, if this spikes, if we get the dollar spike, then yes, I'm expecting Bitcoin to correct a little further. That's just based off this is just my opinion, right? Based off of history, correlations, and fundamentals. I mean, if the dollar's going up, people are piling into dollars for some type of reason. At the moment, it's the expectation of either right now the dollar's going up off expectations that the Fed doesn't hike rates. Because if they don't, if they hold rates tighter than where they're at, then all that excess dollars that were supposed to go into the market, go into risk, come right back into the dollar because they're like, okay, the Fed's not going to cut yet. So it really depends on inflation. I don't think this narrative has changed. If inflation continues on a path lower, I think the dollar rolls over, interest rates continue to fall, crypto goes higher, the stock market continues to make more gains. But if inflation reaccelerates, no, different story. So I'm just watching the trends here. What's a black swan? Sorry, I'm extremely new to this. Now you're good. Black swan event is basically an unforeseen event. So a couple of black swans would be the 2008 financial crisis, right? Some people say they could have saw it coming, but it was a big bust in the financial system. A bunch of banks, like there was a couple banks who were basically levered up. It'd be like if you invested $1 real, but you had $10. No, you had $40. I think there were 40. Lehman's was like 40x levered. So what that means is if your dollar declines by just like 10 cents, you get wiped out. The whole dollar's gone, right? You don't have to lose the whole dollar. You only have to lose 10 cents and you're out of the system. That's what happened to Lehman Brothers. They were levered up so much that basically 10 cents was their dollar. On the flip side, for every 10 cents that goes up, they gain another dollar. So it's leverage is just basically it's a cheat code to make money, but it also hurts you at the same time. That's probably a terrible representation. I'm gonna have to think about how to explain that concept a little better to somebody who's new. I don't know. You guys probably know what a good concept of leverage is. Leverage is dangerous, but it could also help you, right? So you invest $1, but you really have 10, but you only own 1. But if you own 10 and then the asset goes up and say it doubles, well, you don't double by $1, you double by 10. So you make way more money. But on the flip side, if it declines, you lose everything, you get wiped out. That's kind of that's probably a crappy way of explaining it. I'll think of a better analogy. I haven't thought about that one yet. I'm going to add that in the course when it's ready. How to understand leverage. These really simple concepts. I haven't thought about all of them, how to explain them. So forgive me for that. Because to me, it's like in my head, it's really simple. But that doesn't help if you're a newbie, right? So I'll figure that out. Black Swan is a bad event. Also, the pandemic was a black swan, right? Nobody saw a virus that would take out the economy. That's a black swan event. What else was a black 2001? The dot-com bust wasn't really a black swan event because it was just excessive leverage. You could see the economy starting to roll over. Not the economy. You could see that people had to sell their stocks because they were super overvalued, way overvalued, just like Bitcoin rolling off. That's not a black swan event. It's just people get too excited, they invest way too much, and then the people who are smart, they sell at the top. As soon as growth peaks and starts to roll over in the economy, they sell. And then other people are still buying, right? That's not a black swan, but there was a black swan. That was when the Twin Towers got hit, 9/11. That was the second order effect. That was really a black swan because you destroyed the biggest financial center in the world, and that was a risk off event. So that was a black swan. There you go. 9/11 was a black swan. Yep. If 40x leverage, then a move of 1/4 would liquidate the position. 1/40th. So what would that be in terms of like $1? 1/40th would be what? Dang, would it be like 5 cents? It'd be or 2.5 cents. Is that 2.5 cents? I think it's 2.5 cents. Yeah. If you're leveraged up 40x, which from my understanding was Lehman Brothers, if you lost 2.5 cents of that dollar, you get liquidated. That's crazy. That's way too much leverage. So what is this? The dollar? Oh yeah. So the dollar has been moving up. Why is this so slow? Let me remove this. Because I'll probably go over this tomorrow or Sunday. Yeah, because this is a long stream. I'm not gonna do that. All right. Yeah, so you macro guys who are wondering about the macro, I'll be doing another stream on where we're at in the cycle. I think we're early cycle. I think I don't want to say it's just getting started because we're already up a lot, but we're like in the middle. We're in the middle range of an early cycle reacceleration. We've been accelerating, and now there needs to be time to breathe, but earnings did not, earnings right now are boosting the market even higher. So I still think S&P, right? Where's all-time highs at? Here we go. Let's mark those all-time highs. We're looking at S&P because it is the benchmark to the equity market, the stock market. This is the benchmark. So I think the second half of the early cycle will start once we come back down. Right? So we're here. Probably come back down. Maybe we don't get down here, but we're going to come back down. We're a little overdone at the moment. You see the bearish divergence. So this was the highest buying pressure, which was down here, but we've been climbing based off of weak demand for stocks. I think shorts are covering. There's a lot of short covering, and maybe we come back down. I could be wrong. Maybe we just trend up forever, but we have some macro risks. The Bank Term Funding Program ends in March. Delinquencies are starting to pick up. The Fed has not cut rates yet, and they're also talking about pushing those rate cuts out further. So I think the market will get nervous at some point. That's my guess. I thought it was going to get nervous back here. It didn't happen. It made another high. So I think we're going to get nervous. Also, the easy telltale is that rates start to climb again. Okay, so we look at 10-year rates, and they're not really climbing, but if they get above this level, then we're definitely going to have a pullback. But even with rates up and dollar up, the market still climbed higher today. That was based off of earnings, profit margins moving higher. Let's get rid of this. Also, I think that's what's holding us back. Yeah, there we go. %. Yeah, you're welcome. So, yeah, US 10-year yield. This is the cost of capital. We're looking at that. Man, I'm trying to stay very patient for Tesla. Very patient for Tesla. Here's where I always get banned on TikTok for talking about Tesla. Oh, look at it. Somebody just yeah. Palantir earnings Monday after hours. Yeah, Palantir, another great one. I love Palantir. So yeah, Tesla has this tremendous oversold divergence, right? Price basically dipped. So we're getting some bullish divergence here. Okay, a little bit. It's slight. And bullish divergence is that the RSI or the buying pressure is starting to pick back up. The selling pressure is exhausted. So it's starting to lift. Okay, it's starting to lift. At the same time, prices are not lifting. Prices are right back to where they were. Okay, this isn't the strongest divergence. There's the stronger divergence would be if price was doing this and then the RSI, right, was climbing. That'd be bullish divergence, like super bullish divergence. There's like class A, class B. This is class B. It's not that divergent yet. But if you get this moving higher, okay, the best scenario is RSI starts to pick up a little bit and you see Tesla's price still trend a little lower. That's when I'll get really excited. Okay. This is not advocation of buying Tesla at all. I'm just pointing out that this is like pushing a beach ball underwater, right? You're pushing the pressure down, 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 down. Eventually it's gonna collapse to the upside. It's gonna implode upwards. It's not gonna stay down forever, and it's gonna come up a lot. So 190, I think it has to clear 190. It cleared 190 and then it sold off and then it gapped down. So I think 190 it needs to get above and hold. But it is getting close. And then if you look at the fundamentals, because that's what drove this a lot lower, is basically they've been cutting prices. The biggest headwind for Tesla is interest rates. Mag 7 is pushing the market. Interest rates is the biggest problem right now because the purchasing of cars is always tied to how much you pay on a monthly basis, right? So if the Fed were to cut rates in March, I think Tesla would explode just based off the fact that they no longer have to cut prices, which cuts their profits, right? They're lowering prices to get more demand into the market, but it's not really working because even if you have a lower price vehicle, that interest rate of whatever the interest rate is for vehicles is so high that it's not causing the demand effect that they want. So as soon as interest rates get cut, Tesla prices, the demand picks up. I'm sorry, not the prices, the demand picks up. I don't know if they really hike prices. I don't think they're going to do that. But what it's going to do is it's going to make demand come back. Also, it was still the best selling car, Model Y, best selling car. There's a bunch of, I always retweet the stuff on my Twitter. Still has really good fundamentals. The energy part of the segment is starting to lift. So Tesla Energy is going to be the most profitable segment of their business model. And sort of like Apple has iPhones, MacBooks, Apple services. What else they got? What am I missing here? Apple iPads. There you go. You have all these segments, right? Right now, they just have automotive. That's making most of their money. That hasn't even begun to really super accelerate. It started with Model Y in 2020 and 2019, but they got a big boost at zero rates and more liquidity. So they're growing still at a fast pace, just not as fast as people wanted. So they had to, the valuation was very stretched, and you needed full self-driving to come into play, and you needed interest rates to come down. So far, full self-driving has not come into play yet. If that were to come into play, now the future expectations of their profits expand tremendously, and this will boom, just like Nvidia, just like AMD, just like who else is Meta, because now you're forward looking. Once the regulation passes for full self-driving, now you have a self-driving taxi. It's cheaper and it makes you money, right? Self-driving cars, very, very good for the business, but it's just not ready yet. So that's one segment. Number two, interest rates come down. It's going to boom. It'll boom for sure. Mag 7 is pushing up the market. The rest is lagging hard. Look at the 500 stocks above 50-day average. Most stocks are starting to sell. Yeah, Bukowski, I agree, bro. That's why I'm cautious on this big upside move. It's mostly Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, a little bit, Nvidia, semiconductors. So my guess at this point now is Nvidia earnings are going to roll the market over. Nvidia earnings, right? Also, just to put a nail in the coffin here for Tesla, here's your real bottom. Okay, as far as the technicals, okay, at this point we got oversold. We're not there. We might be oversold on the daily, but the weekly has more room to fall. Once you get down here on the weekly, that's it. That's it. It's rocket time, right? So that might even bring us down to, I mean, you could go to I think 170. 170, big downside to 170. That's where that next demand's at, 170. I don't think it gets down to 100. Heck no. Unless there's a overall market collapse. I don't see that. So maybe 170, 150 at the lowest. That would be a steal. But yeah, I'm watching this RSI in the weekly now because the daily's giving us a signal, but the news is just bad. Okay, the news is just bad. And I think most of it's priced in. I see the buyers stepping in every day that I'm watching it. The buyers are trying to step in and pick the price up. But you need a better catalyst for the institutions to come back in. Yeah, you're right. The 50-day are the market internals are looking kind of sus. Where's the market internals at? 50. We got here you go. How many stocks are moving above their 50-day moving average? So this chart is a market breadth, or how broad is the rally? How broad is it? How wide is it? Is it only a couple stocks or is it very wide? So what I want to go to is I want to use this baseline, and I'm going to put this at 50, because once you cross below 50, you're basically seeing, let me pull it down here. Once you go below 50, you're basically seeing 50% of this, or half the stock market, half the S&P is trading below the 50-day moving average. So once you get below 50, momentum is gone. We still have momentum, but once you get below, see, it's coming off, but once you go below, momentum is gone. Okay, that's it. And you can't really go negative on this chart because it's not a diffusion index. That's okay. That's just what's a fancy talk. It's just S&P 500 stocks. What percentage are above the 50-day moving average, which is a trend indicator, right? Technical trend indicator. So if we cross below 50, and I'm waiting for this to dip a little lower. What am I waiting for? I'm waiting for the turn, because I think it's still risk on, but we need to get past a couple of these hoops. You have inflation coming in. What is this, February? Like somewhere around the 14th, I think inflation numbers come back in. And then employment was super strong. So the Fed's not gonna cut rates based off what we're seeing for employment, but they can if inflation falls fast enough. I don't think they want to with the Red Sea issues, but they could. So yeah, you're right. A lot of stocks are not trading very strong. Put to call ratio, where we at? Ooh, that came back down. Put to call. Where's the? So right now there's still. How do I read this? How do I determine this? There's definitely more calls than puts. Okay, so down here there's more puts. I'm sorry, there's more puts at the top, more calls at the bottom. So there's more calls in the market, but the closer it gets down here, the more those calls, because if calls, you're using leverage. If the market makes a big move, which could happen next week, makes a big upside move, those calls pick up, right? The calls pick up, and then they cover their positions. Now the puts come in, right? So it works in inverse contrast. Call to put ratio. We'll see how it plays out. It's in the middle. Everything's kind of like in the middle. I'm waiting for an exaggeration to either side. I just haven't seen it. Price is going up, driven by Meta and the Max 7 though. Just say, I saw Tesla yesterday. That was off and unintended, but the door was ajar. Software bug again. Oh, the software bug. Where do I see Tesla at the end of the month? At the end of the month, I think by the end of the month, Tesla is north of 185. I think it'll be north of 185, somewhere between 180 and 215. It can move fast. It can get to 220 and then come back down. So somewhere between 220, 185 by the end of the month. Because it can also move outside of the market, the overall market. And it really depends what's driving it, right? So that's what I would say. I think we need to really get past the next inflation print and what's going to happen with how does the market interpret Fed cut? It's really employment, bro. It's really employment and inflation. Where are rates going to be at? So interest rates come down. It's not the 10-year, it's not the bond rates. It's going to be real interest. It's going to be the Fed's interest rates. Those need to come down. Unfortunately. All right, let's get off this indicator. I saw Tesla yesterday. That was unintended. The door was ajar. So I think you're pointing out the Tesla recalls. Yeah, that's kind of false stuff. The Tesla recalls. Those recalls are over-the-air updates. So it's not like you got to go turn your car in. It's just over-the-air updates. Palantir earnings, somebody asked. Yeah, Palantir has a lot of demand. If I had extra liquidity, I'd be buying this. But I'm pretty much irresponsibly long Chainlink. So not that I'm supposed to say that. Where can I find graph information, good source? What's good content to read to get better understanding of investing? Good question. There's so many sources off the top of my head. If you check out realvision.com, Real Vision, they have a lot of good stuff. You could subscribe to, I have stuff too that I've written. I mean, I'm not the expert, but basically what I know, I'm building a course right now from bottoms up investing to macro cycles, investing cycles, technical analysis, all that stuff. But that's going to take a little more time than I thought. But I do have a lot of posts on investing, right? Compounded interest, history. It's a lot of information. If you're just getting started, be ready to learn. That's all I can say. Be ready to learn. Also, you know who has a good podcast? The Compound. The Compound and Friends is a really good podcast. They have market stuff, and then they also have like investing, like beginner investing stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff out there, and there's a lot of trash too. Be careful. Dave Ramsey, his information is mostly for beginners, but in this environment, I don't really like his advice. I think his advice is more for people who make very bad mistakes and really can't learn themselves. But yeah, I got some good if you want to support me, I got some Mother Goose. I got some good content on investing. Go to my link. There's a link in my description in my profile, and I think it's called Investing for Beginners. It just goes over, basics, investing for beginners, basics. There's a lot of I've written a lot of content over the years. I think that one's from like 2020. But I'm coming out with some new stuff. And then the real basics of it is your wages will never make you wealthy. They're never going to help you because prices always rise higher. Okay, they're always going to go up. The overall stock market, if you just have a 401k, guess what? They're taking pieces out of your money. The stock market, the 401k doesn't outpace your wages either. So depending on how risky you want to get, how much time if you just take your average job and your average wages and you invest in a bust cycle, not a boom, in a bust cycle, if you invest in a bust, maybe 10-20% from the lows, and you're in the right asset, you can do very well. In my opinion, from what I've seen, you can do very well. You don't need to do all this crazy stuff. You could do it yourself. So we're leaving the bus cycle at the moment. We already have the bus cycle. We're starting to turn up, but I think we have a long way to go from here. Gervain, what up? Meta had the biggest single day market cap gain in history. Really? Biggest single day market cap gain in history. Interesting. Is that at $1 trillion now? Bigger than Nvidia, huh? That is insane. They announced that that dividend. They announced that dividend, and that definitely pushed up the name. That's crazy. Yeah, that's now that is a blow off top. Where's that RSI? That's a blow off top. And that's a weekly chart. Look at that, dude. That's a weekly chart. This is the top. I think we're at the top right now. Not today, not tomorrow, but I think we're near the top. And when I say the top, I mean the local top. This is not going to last. This is not going to last. It'll come down and then trend higher again, but you have Nvidia also blowing off top. This was pretty big, 300 to 390. Yeah, because people are going to cover. They're buying calls. They're going to cover those calls. They're going to cover. They're going to sell. Elon needs to invest a better battery to get the majority over to EVs. I think range is the biggest thing holding it back. As far as I understand, Bukosi, the range is pretty good. You only need 400 miles of range. Most Toyotas, their range is like 350. A lot of the EVs are like 400, right? So maybe range and price, isn't the Model 3 like 350, 325 range? I think people are scared because they don't know where charging stations are at. I think they're kind of like they're skittish because they're like, well, what if there's not a charging station? If you're in California, this problem doesn't exist because there's charging stations everywhere in California. In China too, there's a bunch of charging stations. So I wouldn't say range is the issue. I don't even think price is the issue anymore. That 25,000 vehicle coming in is going to get tax credits, and it'll come down to 19,000. I just think Tesla's way ahead of its time, and it's hard to see the big picture. Could I have a look at Google chart? Yeah. What up, Max P? Ooh, Google. Now that's a good opportunity. Google's pulling back. I don't really like where the market's at, but Google's not overbought like Meta yet. And everybody knows Meta's going to have a big year because of ad spend, right? Ad spend, a lot is going to go in there. Oh, what up, Dima Yush? You'll be sure to check it out. Yeah. And look, Mother Goose, I'm coming out with I'm coming out eventually with the course. And that's what I've been working on for the last like 3 months, for a beginner to very simplify these concepts and give a holistic view, fundamentals, macro, and technicals, and just make it simple. You just got to be a learner, be willing to learn. You got to take a risk. Every time you get on the road to drive a car, you're taking a risk, right? You just got to be smart about it. You got to know your knowledge and keep learning. Cybertruck range was much lower than advertised. Yeah, you have to pay more for the range. Range anxiety. There you go. Range anxiety. I think people are what up, Demi Yush? How's it going? What's up? So yeah, a lot of range anxiety. So Google, yeah, Google is Google looks good. Let's turn on that other 50. Let's turn that 50-day SMA on. So if anything, let's remove this. If anything, Google, the pullback is really healthy for Google. That's a healthy pullback right there. Let's go to the daily. Healthy pullback. And it's just riding this wave. So I'd say you're pretty much in range. Anything below 135 is going to be a rollover weakness. but it's uptrending. This is good that it pulled back. It's not in Nvidia, AMD. Let me see Amazon. Amazon had Amazon had that big gap up. And I'm not saying these can't run any further. It just depends. If you're trading, it doesn't matter, right? If you're trading, it doesn't matter. But if you're investing, you want to get a good low price. You want to get a discount. You don't want to chase. What is my bias right now? Perfect storm for bears with market stretched, inflation back, Fed's not helping. I think the market is stretched. I think it's stretched, and we need to get a little more stretched. I wouldn't say inflation is back. I would say the recipe for inflation being sticky is there. Container shipment insurance is up. Wage inflation is up. Although when it comes to wages, people worked less hours, and a lot of people got overtime. So a lot of that wage inflation was people working extra overtime for the holiday season, right? December into January. I think it was a lot. And also there's going to be revisions. So I don't think, like I always say, Demiush, unless we see oil go above 90 or 100, I don't see inflation coming back or re-accelerating. I just see inflation staying a little more sticky, and not because inflation's bad, but when I say inflation, I mean like runaway supply side inflation, but because consumers are spending a lot still, right? I still don't think it lasts, because now we're seeing what New York City Bank collapse. And I think we get some more real estate. This isn't it. We probably get some more real estate bubbles popped. So I don't see inflation really coming back like that, in my view. And this is why rates came down a little bit. Let me see. Fed's not helping. Fed's doing a good job. I mean, you're getting a lot of fiscal spending from the politicians. They're doing a terrible job. The Fed's trying to manage it. They don't really want to cut because they don't know how much more fiscal spending is going to come, right? So they almost have to wait till something does break, and it's probably going to be auto loans, commercial real estate. Is it going to be a big, big bust? Nothing they can't take care of. Bank term funding program is running out in March, though, so that's a big worry. I think the next big bust in the market won't be till 2025. That's my guess. Maybe even late 2025, because you're getting a productivity boom. AI is helping. It's coming in. It's starting to show up inside of the earnings reports. Okay, it's starting to show up there. There's still a lot of labor demand, so people still have jobs. As long as they have jobs, you have more. You're going to have spending. So inflation might be stickier because of how strong the economy is, but I don't think it's going to be a bad sticky. It'll be a profit-driven stickiness for the Mag 7 and for manufacturing. Maybe not retail, maybe not clothes, maybe not food. I don't know. There's going to be winners and losers, but broad market, I don't really see an issue. Crypto, I don't see an issue. I think crypto's the best opportunity still, because the cycle is just getting started. Earnings not so hot. Yeah, earnings are not so good, but remember Q1, these were projected 3 months ago to be the worst earnings. So the next and you weren't here earlier, but the next month should be very strong earnings, or stronger. Profit margins will rise from there. So this is the worst quarter of earnings. And also GDP is at 4% GDP now. So we're now looking at really good earnings for the next season. So no, I don't think it's too dire. I think the market slowly melts higher until until we get extremely overbought. But I think we're in a bull market. I think we're still in a bull market, Demiush, unless we get oil spike above 90, 100. We're going to stay in this bull market for a while. Technology is starting to come back. If there's a war and it expands and it gets bad, that's obviously very bad. But it's all about inflation staying where they're at. And of course, if something breaks in the economy, the Fed's going to cut rates. The market corrects 10%. Fed cuts rates. Fed injects liquidity, markets back up. You'll see many more bankruptcies. Yeah, I think we'll see a little more bankruptcies. The question is it going to be worse than March? Show these people the bullish crypto pedal USD, pedal USDT and Celestia Thai USDT. What is that? Pendle. What is this? What is this stuff, bro? I don't know what this is. Is this what you're holding? Hey, that thing is a monster. Whatever it is. Yeah, it's doing good. But does it have fundamentals, right? I don't know. I think the best fundamentals by far are Chainlink. So a lot of cryptos can boom and then bust really quick. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know this. I don't know what this is. So I'm not going to speak on it. Hope you make a lot of money on it. I work for the retail manufacturing transport company Hard Times. Okay, good to know that you still bullish. I will be cautious shorting. Cool, man. I appreciate the respect there, Dimiyush. I will say this, Dimiyush. I'm not super bullish because there's a couple things that need to happen still. And I love this. I love this talk. I love these questions. But I think you need a retracement on the S&P. And my biggest thing is I said this about a month ago, back in December. I think we're going to have a Santa Claus rally. You remember Santa Claus rally. And I think it slows down in January. And I think it rolls over mid-February. That's what I said. I said early to mid-February, I think it rolls over. Why? Because Apple earnings always was a transition period. And I said, if it's not Apple earnings, maybe it moved to NVIDIA because NVIDIA is moving like a monster. All eyes on chip spending, all eyes on silicon spending chips. So the chip sector, SMH, is so monstrous. Well, I guess it doesn't look that monstrous, huh? But if you look at AMD, okay, I mean, it is AMD, NVIDIA. What are they doing? They're rallying very strong into earnings. So this is where I think the turn is. And once you get NVIDIA earnings, what is this? February 21st. Maybe we go up all the way till February, and then you get a big retracement. I mean, I don't know if NVIDIA really retraces that much, but this is also around the same time, right? This is the same time that you're probably going to see commercial real estate risks come in, CRE, commercial real estate, right? You're going to see a couple loans. And if they collapse, I don't think that's going to be bad. I think it's a slow domino effect. If it's slow, it's bad. But if it falls right away, Fed steps in, cuts rates, easy. But if it's slow, market's going to get nervous. Also, the bank term funding program. Are you guys going to reinstate these banks or not? Number two, the RRP might run out. So the market's going to get nervous because the reverse repo liquidity is almost gone, right? Right here. It's almost gone. It has $500 billion to go, meaning they can, you have $500 billion of cash to buy treasuries, but the US Treasury is looking to sell $1 trillion. So where's the rest of the liquidity going to come from? Shoot, I don't know. Maybe the Fed balance sheet. So I think the market can still melt up, right? I think we can still melt up a little further. And there's a lot of momentum at the moment, but maybe NVIDIA earnings, somewhere around NVIDIA earnings, mid-February now is what I'm thinking. And positioning kind of came off. It's probably back on, but I think we grind a little higher. And oil's not too bad. Rates are not too bad. This is another part, right? The dollar and the 10-year yield. Where's my macro at? The bread and butter, right? The crystal ball is right here. Okay, so right now, the market is inversely correlated to the dollar. Not 100%, but most of the time, 80%, 75%. Well, the market's running up with the dollar, so they're running together, but this is based off earnings. If the dollar continues on this path, the market, the stock market can only take so much big D. You know what I mean? No pun intended. The dollar can only take so much D going up before it's like, okay, that's too much pressure. And then maybe that's in February, maybe it's mid-February, the dollar keeps going up and then it can't take no more pressure. Right? Same thing with rates. If rates come back to this level, the market can only take so much rates in D in dollar before it pumps over. So that's kind of why I'm looking at. I'm not, it might meld up, but it's not super bullish. I'm guessing we have a retracement at some point. Crypto, I think, is a little different. I think some of the cryptos don't really care. So we'll see. A lot of factors. I'm pretty unsure, but this is a good sign right here. I'll tell you this. Oil coming down this fast, very good sign. Very good sign because there's no inflationary pressures. The market's going to buy into more disinflation. Disinflationary boom. I've been saying it. You guys see me on my thumbnails. Disinflation, early cycle boom. And then the big telltale. I'll just go ahead and throw it up here since you're watching. Rates retrace too much. Yeah, rates might retrace too much. Maybe not. Maybe they don't. They're not really moving. But here's my big telltale. Let me throw back Twitter on here. Okay. Well, it's going to be scary to get really bearish. I don't want to get too bearish here. Come on, Twitter, load up. After 5 to 7 years of use, how good is that battery going to be? Good question. They're also developing that 1,000,000-mile battery. So I see what you're saying. 5 to 7 years of use. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Bukowski. Oh my goodness. Come on, bro. What is using so much energy? I don't know. Well, I'm going to do these charts tomorrow anyway. The macro charts. I'll do them tomorrow. Short chips at the top. Yeah, be careful. But I think in somewhere around NVIDIA earnings, I think I would be looking for this when it comes to NVIDIA, since this is the leading chip play. And if you're a day trader, you love this environment, volatility, whatever it is. But the number one play, AMD did it the other day. And this is where I would see, where I typically would actually go to AMD since it showed that pattern. This is typically what you'll see on that reversal. Where was it? It was a gap down. I think it was like right here. Yeah, I think it was right here. I mean, it continued higher, but it would be a pattern like this for NVIDIA, for the chip sector in general. A big gap down after earnings, okay? And then it runs up, fills that gap, tries to fill that gap, and then it reverses lower. As soon as it starts reversing, that might be the tipping point. Now, it did catch more steam and then gapped up, but, it's getting tired. It's getting tired. You see the RSI, they're getting tired. They're overran. Look at the RSI is way up there. I mean, that's a 30-minute. The weekly RSI is getting tired. It's way up there. So I think there's going to be a top up here at some point. Same thing with NVIDIA. Now Meta is giving us that signal. NVIDIA is way up there. But remember, NVIDIA could be tired for a while, so got to be careful. We'll see how it runs up in earnings. Now we got Meta. Oops. Now we got this big move on Meta. I mean, that is insane. Should have seen that coming. Started holding this trend and then just exploded. Either way, yeah. I'm waiting for a retracement. It might not even be the Mag 7. It might be IWM. Because we're expecting rates to come in, right? Now we're not. So I don't have much clarity, but what I do know is, or what I do understand, what I am confident is the economy, the manufacturing economy is starting to reaccelerate based off the data that I have, which is not pulling up yet. SPY 528 fib. Join me short chips. Join me to short chips. I'm actually looking at it. I'm actually looking at shorting chips. I want to see that. I want to see that move though. The other part is we could just get a nasty rally. It's going to come down at some point, which is why I look at the RSI. But there's just so much, I don't want to say froth, but so much excitement and demand for these chips. TSM, let's see, what is TSM looking like? TSM looks pretty good. I actually have a whole chip. You just go to chips. Here we go. Here's all our chips. NVIDIA. Let's look at these RSIs. NVIDIA up there. Now remember, look, it got oversold and it just kept climbing. So you could stay climbing, which is why I want to see how it reacts during earnings. SMCI, this thing, oh my goodness. This thing will probably have a pullback. This is in the small cap sector also. This is a small cap. So this has a smaller market cap, which means it could run. Now this would be a nice pullback in here and then go long. This would be nice. But yeah, these chips are on fire. Qualcomm. Oh, Qualcomm, not that great. Intel. Yeah, so and that's the thing. Not all the chips are climbing higher. So if they were all up, I'd be worried, but they're not. So you could just get a rotation into other chips. AMD. Now this candle tells me AMD could probably keep running. We'll see. What is this? This is, oh wow, no way. Broadcom's up that much? I didn't even see this. I mean, that's a look at that. That thing's $1,000. Imagine that option. Imagine those puts. The manufacturing will be okay. I mean, I don't know about your sector, but the overall macro manufacturing is starting to recover. The momentum is recovering for manufacturing. ISM, and these are big companies. Remember, Dima Yush. We're talking about S&P 500 companies, not necessarily like smaller companies. So that's the caveat. TSM, ARM. I think ARM's up a little bit. Micron. Yeah, they're not all tired. I guess they're not all tired. Maybe there's a rotation on. Oh, that looks bearish now. ServiceNow, very bullish. This probably just keeps going higher. Looks like a nice grind higher. Yep, it's holding that 10-day weekly. This is a 10-day weekly moving average right off it. So this one might not stop. It's not overdone yet. It'll just stay up here for a while. But NVIDIA, on the other hand, I know people are going to be looking for this meta short. But the reason why I'm not getting so bearish is because if we're in early cycle, if inflation comes out better, if oil doesn't spike, these just come down a little bit and they just consolidate and just keep moving higher, right? If the Fed clears it up with the market, hey, we have we know there's a little bit of banking issues, but nothing is widespread. They just got to talk to the market. And if they use those expectations, they'll drive the market higher. So, but man, that was a big candle for Meta. Oh, that's the week. Was that a weekly chart? Because we got a gap up. Oh, yeah, we did have a gap up. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, we'll see. Everybody's watching these two areas. That's gonna be wild. Too many questionable ifs. Yeah, there's a lot of ifs. So I would say if the market retraces, it's healthier. But if it keeps moving higher with these ifs piling up, then I'd be a little more short. But I don't think we're at that point yet. The S&P and the Qs are still just ripping. Once you get to all-time highs, there's no resistance, right? There's really no resistance. This move hasn't really happened yet. We're up above all-time highs and it's just grinding. See, this is what I mean, Demi. You should look at the cues. It had a healthy pullback to the mid level, came right back to the mid level, so it can just keep ripping. So I'm not really like, oh, go short. I don't think shorting an index is really that healthy yet. If anything, it's just starting to break out. Individual names, there will be opportunities, but until then, I don't know. Only shorting spikes and 11% profitable in January. Okay, good, nice. So yeah, we might get a melt up. I'd be a little careful. Don't get like don't hold it overnight. If it's barely, like, it might just gap up on you. We'll see. I'm gonna keep track of this. I was looking at a couple things today. I mean, look at Tesla just make a new low, made a new low, and then just burst higher right back up. That was midday, but I mean, it's still not above the open, or the close, yesterday's close. So it might just come back down. I think Tesla offers a pretty good opportunity for like a long trade, not a short trade, but a long trade. Too many questions. Yep. 1 minute SPY RSI is only 1 month SPY. Oh, yeah, 1 month SPY. Yeah, exactly. I think we're melting higher, guys. I think we're going to melt higher. It's still not there yet. Yeah, we might be melting higher. So I'm not really that bearish. And the macro data tells me we're reaccelerating. That's all I'm seeing. Run from Tesla EVs, lost appeal. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, not in California, not in China. Model Y still best-selling car. I think a lot of it is news FUD. It's a lot of news FUD. Still the best-selling car. Still the most profitable EV company. So it's kind of a false narrative. You're hearing those narratives, but I'm in Maine and own an EV. Oh, you're in Maine. Oh, shoot, you're in Maine. Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother demographic. It's a whole nother demographic. So we'll see, man. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I just want to look at the macro today, the employment report. Look at momentum's picking up. As far as the market knows, momentum in the economy is starting to pick up. So it's going to bid higher. Earnings were good for the Mag 7, not all, but if we look at these small caps, right? What does it look like? It looks like it's holding that previous month. This is just a monthly candle. It's holding the previous month. If it keeps holding and it pushes the highs, there you go. Back to the highs. Back to the highs for the small caps. Where are we at with Chainlink? Look at crypto. Chainlink moving up again. I mean, does that look like weakness? Not really. Bitcoin. I mean, it looks like it needs to pull back, and it probably will at some point. Ethereum, I think, has a ways to go. I think Ethereum still has a ways to go. Where are we at? Yeah, the RSI is way down there. Look at that. We haven't even got a real burst yet. Bitcoin on the monthly, still grinding higher. So I think there's still a lot of momentum in this market. Just takes a good entry. And yeah, Nvidia, Meta, those extremely oversold stocks might give you a couple days of downside. That might give you a couple days, maybe 2 or 3, but they might just grind higher over the month. Yeah, 100%, bro. Anyways, yeah, I'm out of here. This is 2 hours. Been on here for 2 hours. I hope you guys have a safe weekend. Stay blessed. Lift weights, eat clean, improve every day, learn something new. Improve yourself however you can. And I wish the best to you guys. Hope you guys make money. I'll catch you next time. Stay blessed. Thank you. Oh, I didn't even hold on. Oh, my bad. I know you asked a question late. Sorry. Oh, never mind. No, you didn't. Okay, good. All right. I'm just making sure you guys didn't ask because there's a delay on YouTube. Somebody asked a question the other day, and I didn't see it because there was such a delay. So I'm just going to make sure there's no further questions. But anyways, yeah, look for, I think the most important data point is going to be inflation. We just had employment. It's next. It's inflation. What is the Fed speaker is going to say? And what does inflation look like? All right, you guys stay blessed. Catch you later.